Dan Banachek's first congressional seat for Congress. So he's a retired Marine general. Let's welcome him back.
All right. You are on candid camera, just to let you know.
How candid is it?
It's as candid as you want it to be. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've heard comments made already tonight that echo a lot of sentiments that I have, and probably in some cases I'll just say ditto when it comes to stepping up, when it comes to taking back, if you will, those things that are important to us and our country, what were envisioned by the Founding Fathers. Some of the things we face today could not have been envisioned in the context of time, but the reality is the framework that we have, also known as the Constitution, gives us a starting point to deal with pretty much anything that's going to come in front of us. Now, I'm going to make a couple of brief comments here about maybe who I am, in case you don't know or are interested. And then I'm going to throw it open to questions. My name is Jack Bergman. I'm a retired Lieutenant General in the Marine Corps. I'm from Watersmeet, Michigan. Anybody here not know where Watersmeet is? Okay. It is, yeah. It has an identity crisis, you know, in some cases, but it's about 45 miles east of Ironwood, Michigan, the very western tip of the Upper Peninsula. And right at the crossroads of the two interstates we have up there, 2 and US 45 that comes out of Wisconsin. That's Watersmeet, Michigan. And a resident there, voting resident for 18 years. When I say voting resident, that is because my chosen career paths took me away from there until 2010, when I finally retired from the Marine Corps. And a few years before that, when I flew for Northwest Airlines, I was based in Detroit for 22 years. So the point is, I didn't get a whole lot of time to spend and relax at the home up there until after completing my service, if you will, in the uniforms. I've been in the medical equipment business for 40 years, so that's what I do in my spare time. And to echo what Mr. DiMercurio said here about the idea of being accountable and being responsible, I would suggest to you that what you're looking at here is someone who's been stress tested over a long period of time in unique situations, whether it be in its simplest form, just making sure that you as a passenger on one of the flights that I may have flown you on as a pilot for Northwest, to make sure you got there safely. Not necessarily on time, that's secondary, you know, but the key is safely. And as a Marine, I've always been proud to be a member of the United States military. The Marine Corps just happens to be one branch. And the point is that anyone who serves their country, whether it be in uniform, whether it be serving in the community, whether it be serving in their church, whether it be serving at any level, has a lot to be proud of, because I already heard it here. Step up, get involved, and that's what makes us who we are. This country, thanks to our founding fathers who laid it all on the line about 240 some years ago, we have what we have. And truly, they laid it all on the line. The last time we laid it all on the line was World War II. Okay? That's the last time we laid it all on. So, if, in fact, history tends to repeat itself, you have to assume that at some point we are going to be asked again as a country to lay it all on the line. You can't do that, as I heard said earlier, by sitting in front of your TV. That's not laying it all on the line. You got to get out and get involved. So I am running for U.S. Congress in the 1st District. to replace Dan Benishek, who's retiring. And I'm excited about the opportunity to extend my service now in a suit as opposed to a uniform. And I'm proud of all of it. So having said that, I'm proud to be here with you tonight. And if you think I should be given the chance to compete in the 1st District, I would very much appreciate your signature on my qualifying petition, which I'm very close to finishing that required 1,000 up, so that my name will be on the Republican ballot for the August 2nd primary. So if you're so inclined, before you leave here, I'll have the petitions up here when we break, and I really appreciate your support in that area. So having said that, let's talk about what's on your mind. Yes.
What was your MOF in the Marine Corps? Sort of with the grunts in action.
7562 was my first MO. And we had a mutual admiration society with the grunts. I was a helicopter pilot. We thought they were crazy for getting out. They thought we were crazy for flying. They felt a lot safer on the ground when we had left. But they were always glad to see us come back with more ammo, more food, and to extract them.
Thank you for your service.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
I'm also Senior Chief David A. Dion. I served with H&S Company for 5 years, from 76 to, no, 70, anyway, till 84, when I retired from the Naval Service. And I'm really pleased to see more and more military people stepping up and getting into Congress and into the Senate. I think Gary Stubblefield has a program where they, Operation, I forget what they call it now, but anyway.
They're trying to encourage more vets to get involved in the process.
We got a lot that we liked this last election, throughout the country. But anyway, I'm just very pleased that, I wonder if you're part of that. Do you think he'll get support from his PAC, I guess is what it is?
That's a great question. I've told if I'm going to be successful on 2 fronts here, I have to make sure I build the confidence in you that you will vote for me, but I also have to build a confidence in those who would provide financial support. I'm not afraid to ask people for anything, okay? Because I have asked a lot over the course of time, and the most I've asked of people are in 2 areas. Number 1, in the military. Number 1, ask the families of my Marines and sailors to give us their most precious blood. It's a lot to ask for. I'm a father of 5 and grandfather of 8. And I've asked my Marines and sailors to go in and do the toughest things in the world. And that's very important. To ask people for support is a whole lot easier. But you know what? When you look at these youngsters, and not so young folks, in the eye, they just say, what do you want me to do, boss? Because they are ready, they are motivated. You all have a lot to be proud of here, your sons and daughters who serve in the military today and who have. So thank you for your service. I saw a hand back there.
Yes, I'm a Ron Paul disciple, and I want to know if you were going to audit the Fed. If you co-sponsor a bill or sponsor a bill.
Audit the Federal Reserve?
Yeah.
Short answer is yes. Short answer is yes, because there's, without an understanding of where the problems lie, if you will, you can't determine it unless you do an audit, and you can't do a self-audit.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably wouldn't just stop at the Fed. Okay, there's some other audits that need to go on. And there are audit departments already that exist across the federal government that, so utilize, it has to be honesty, it has to be upfront, and you have to look under the rug Look behind the file cabinets, look in all those places where people have been accidentally hiding things for a while, hoping no one would look. But you know what? It's part of human nature to do that. Squirrels squirrel away nuts in the fall, but they have a purpose. They're going to eat them by the spring, you know? Okay? But we don't need to be squirreling away things or hiding things for the wrong reasons. Yes, you're next.
Would you explain to the group what you explained to Greg and I earlier about the deplorable way we handle our veterans and what you would do with the VA?
Well, obviously, as recently as a couple of days ago, there was news here in Michigan about the issue with the care at the Veterans Home down in Grand Rapids. But I've been, because of my involvement with the medical equipment business, I started calling on hospitals in 1976, right after I got off of active duty. And I had a couple of VA hospitals. I was on the East Coast at that time. But I got a chance to see under the tent of the difference in quality of care and capabilities of the hospitals. And these were largely my peers in Vietnam, okay? But I'll cut to the chase here in that there is no reason that we need the size of the VA medical facility brick and mortar buildings when you have perfectly fine hospitals like Alpena, you know, over in Munson, you know, whatever. There is no reason for a veteran to have to go long distances to receive care just because they're in the VA system. You give them an access card, or whatever you want to call it, they're a choice card, I think they're what they're calling it now to an extent. But is there a need for VA medical facilities? I would suggest you in certain types. Number one, behavioral health, PTSD type of things that are unique, but if you have good, post-traumatic stress is not just related to the military. Post-traumatic stress, you could have it happen to you, an event happen to you tonight when you leave here that could cause you to suffer the same thing. Prosthetics. The advances in prosthetics, because of the fact that the body armor we wear now, when these IEDs or RPGs, and I apologize if I acronym you up here, it gets a little nuts, but the bottom line is a lot of our young service people survive today because they don't get vital wounds to the vital organs like last occurred again during Vietnam. So now you have amputees, double, triple, traumatic brain injuries. The science and the advancements that have been made because of these injuries will benefit all of mankind. So we have to put the right capabilities and medical type facilities in the VA that reflect the needs of the vets, and then broaden the ability for the vets to get their care in the normal, you know, in their local community. Is that kind of where? But bottom line is, we don't need all these big hospitals for veterans. It's not giving them the care, and it's a waste of money.
Plus, it doesn't give them any other option.
They want to get back in their community.
Sure they do.
They chose to leave. They've come back. And if they're in a situation where they need some help, and let's face it, we all need a little help at some time in our life. Okay, and it should be there for us. David.
Yes, sir. I know you're busy trying to get all these signatures, you're doing a lot of work, but have you put any thought towards how you're going to, what your plan of action might be once you get to Washington on getting the federal government off our backs with all the bureaucracies and all the agencies and all the departments and all the other.
Have I given it a little thought or a lot of thought? They both start with L. But number one, we can't afford the business we're in. How many times have you heard that said in different forms? Sometimes, if any of you were a small business owner here, you might say, I can't afford my business, so I have to do one of two things. Either have to sell more or make more, or I have to go out of business. Well, when you deal with budgets that are appropriated money, it becomes a feeding frenzy among the departments, at least at the federal level, how I observe the process to work. And number one, I would suggest that one of the first things I would do to send a signal, because you already talked about it here tonight, Get the federal government out of the education business.
Amen, brother.
Yay.
Two, the Department of Energy was created for a reason. I'm not sure what reasons, but it was created for a reason. That would be number 2 on my list. Now, there are functions that need to be done by the Department of the Energy, but they were historically done by other departments. Okay? Bring them back to those departments. Our bureaucracy at all levels, if you run a company and you don't control your bureaucracy, it will drag your profit down and you run the risk of going out of business. Well, we just print more money. That's what we've been doing. You've got to cut the bureaucracy, because what happens when you cut the bureaucracy, then you decrease the number of steps in your lines of communication that allow you, as we would say, our young Marines on the ground, their ability to transmit what's going on up to a higher headquarters to get a decision is shortened, not as many steps, and we're more effective. And we push leadership down to the lower levels.
Streamline your efficiency.
Yes, you were next, sir, and then you're after that.
Yes, General, you have already addressed 2 of the issues that I was questioning, was with regards to eliminating some of these huge bureaucracies, namely the Department of Energy and the Department of Education. How do you feel about reining in the EPA? And one thing to get rid of, I think, is this CAFE standards for automobiles. The government shouldn't be telling people how many miles you should get to a gallon. That's your choice when you buy a car.
If you don't, you got to start somewhere, okay? And my priorities, my first 2, were education and energy. And of course, notice they're all starting with E. Okay? But one of the things that I observed in my 6 years in Washington, D.C., from 2003 to 2009, I had offices in New Orleans, where that was my 3-star command down there, headquarters of Marine Corps Reserve. I had an office in D.C. because I spent a lot of time testifying before Congress and working with different issues on Capitol Hill and also within the Pentagon, and also other lettered agencies, okay? Because our business in the Marines is safety and security. Actually, we do it in a very aggressive way, but the bottom line is that's our business. The point is, I had a chance to see how a lot of this stuff works because of those 6 years interacting with the folks in Washington, D.C. I'm not in awe of Washington, D.C. I'm not going there to join a fraternity. I already happen to be a member of, a wonderful fraternity, the United States military, and in its subspecialty, the United States Marine Corps. I'm very proud of that, and I know you all who served are proud of your affiliation as well. So I'm going there because I'm basically, like any Marine, I'm going back to the fight. That's all. I'm going back to the fight. I know what is important in getting things done. I'm a uniter, not a divider. I'm a leader, and I'll lead from the front, but if I'm the junior congressman, I have no problem leading from the back. We'll see. We'll see who gravitates towards who when it comes to leadership. Because we don't change D.C. We change the type of people that we send to D.C.
Yep.
Okay? And if you start changing the type of person, because we change people naturally, okay? People come, people go. But if you don't change the type, you're not going to get the results that you hope for. Okay, now, sir, you were next. You've been very patient back there.
Okay, that would be, was a question about the printing of money. Every time we need something, they're always printing more money. What are you gonna do about that, or what do you want?
Well, first of all, number one, the Congress has the power of the purse. Okay?
Right.
Use it. Stand up and say, it sounds so simple. Stand up and say no. Vote no, but then don't fund it. It's not enough to vote no and then fund it. You say, well, I voted no, but then somebody funded it. Baloney. Continuing resolutions are a trick used by bureaucracies to get what they want because they figure they can outlast you.
When they do something.
So we can't continue to print money. It's just you can watch the slippery slope go. So we don't have an option to continue that way. But you gotta follow on, you gotta,
Well, you made a comment about squirrels. Squirrels only remember where 80% of the nuts have been stored.
Yep.
you know what's important about that? You just hit the magic number, 80%. Because any of you who have studied or anything or know about the bell curve, okay, bottom line is there's an 80% norm to every situation.
Yep.
You're gonna have 10% that you go, wow, was that great? And you're gonna have 10% that's, oh my God, you know, how bad was that? But that's, when you start dealing with any situation, you have to look at the squirrel's 80%. And thank you, I'm gonna use that from now on. I didn't know the squirrels only could find 80%. Okay,
Jack,
sir.
got a question for you, sir. What do you think the biggest problem in Washington is right now, as far as Congress goes?
Career politicians.
Well, that's
No, well, actually, the biggest problem with Congress, or the biggest problem with Congress, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
With Congress?
Well, because I'll follow up and get.
That's fine,
more
but this
specific.
one is about Congress,
The House.
the House.
The House.
The biggest problem is the fact is that I think too many people are going there as a part of what they believe is a natural ascendancy in their career path. Okay? And therefore, because if, like any company you go to work for, you want to do the best and ascend to the highest possible position. Well, that's not what the founding fathers intended when they said, we're going to elect people for 2 years, and they'll probably serve 2 or 3 terms, because they got a farm to run, they got a blacksmith shop to run, they're school teachers, they're whatever it happens to be. That changed over time, so the goal, by the way, I've had 3 wonderful careers. My 4th right now is kind of on hold, and that's being a grandfather, because I've stepped into this. Okay? But that's okay. I get affirmations of love from the grandkids almost on a daily basis. So.
Let me get more specific.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, the thing was transpiring, and I just recently heard Mike Lee talk about this. They're talking about an Article I committee. In other words, currently, Congress doesn't write laws anymore, okay? You got all that alphabet soup that writes regulations, and Mike was saying the last thing Congress has been doing is changing the names of post offices, okay? But you get the EPA and the MOUSC and everybody else writing their regulations, and those are becoming law, which is the job of Congress. Are you aware of that, and what is your plan?
I couldn't have articulated it like you did with that fact, but I am definitely aware of it. And it is part of that uncontrolled bureaucratic growth that allowed people, as the congressman, you walk in and say, well, what do you do? Well, I'm your senior staffer for public policy on healthcare, or banking, or education, or whatever.
Lobbyists.
Well, no, that's a different group. No, these are people, that's a different.
You're talking about staff?
I'm talking about staff. I'm
Okay.
talking about people who, as you said, the Congress no longer sits down and writes the laws. They're expecting, so the staffer then turns probably to the Department of whatever and said, can you put together a policy so we don't have to do this? So it's a change that has occurred over time because we've allowed, I hate to keep coming back to the word bureaucracy.
True.
But if you can start a movement that makes a bureaucracy, I hate to say justify its existence, but let's call it, you got to call them on the carpet and say, what are you doing? What does it provide for value in the end to the United States citizen?
You gotta go further than that, you gotta go back to Constitution, because we got 450 agencies in this country, and none of them, absolutely none of them are authorized in the Constitution. That's right.
That's
They're
right.
not accountable.
They're
They
not
write their own rules and they get turned into laws.
So see,
That's
you
illegal,
already know the job I got on my hands.
Absolutely.
I just got to get there and build
I guess I
state.
just was wondering, would you plan on
I'd
Not
like,
being lazy and writing your own laws for a change?
How about if you don't write any laws and start taking
Well,
away
that would help.
laws?
well, first of all,
Yeah.
the first law I'm gonna introduce, now, this is a lightning rod. So I know I probably won't have too many folks serving in Congress supporting me. But why not start with term limits?
Yes.
Yay.
Good idea.
Okay? How do we build statesmen if we're building career politicians?
And
Well,
we
we-
can take away the 6th year and then you get full medical benefit
Right.
and
Make them
pension for
subject to
life.
the same thing that we're subject
Oh,
to.
the 6
In
years.
my bill, it would look something like this. It would look like, number one, what changed from when our forefathers wrote the Constitution, they thought 2 years was a good election cycle for representative serving. I would suggest to you, we all get election fatigue, because whether you're the people being elected, whether you're the people electing the people. So you amend the Constitution, which we've done numerous times when it was the right thing to do. 17th Amendment, when we changed the election of senators.
That should be
You
done
think
away
that's
with.
right?
Okay, so the point is.
You think
we-
that's right?
Now, wait a minute, not your
I just
turn,
asked,
not
you
your,
think-
not your turn yet, not your turn. I'll let
Okay.
you know when I'm
I'm gonna
done.
come right back to
Well,
that.
trust me, I won't forget it.
Okay.
Just, when it's your turn, you get a shot. Okay. I would suggest to you that the right election cycle now for representatives would be 4 years. Limit them to 3 terms, so you can serve as a representative for 12 years. If you can't get your act together in 12 years, you probably shouldn't have been there to begin with. Okay? Now, if the right answer after a national debate is to keep the 17th Amendment as it is, there was a national debate probably in 1910, 12, whatever, that started in the early 1900s to talk about that, because their concern was corruption in the state legislatures who were electing the senators at that time.
They were appointing.
Whatever. They were appointed. They were sending them to Washington DC. Okay? The reality is that you do the same thing to senators. Again, whether they stay elected by the states, don't care. You limit them to 2 terms. Okay? So now you could potentially, as a budding statesman, serve for 24 years in the United States Congress, 12 years in the Congress, 12 years in the Senate. While you're there, you get a salary, you get expenses to run your office, you get, whatever. You get your 401k, you can make your contributions to it, you have some form of health insurance that's available to everybody else.
Obamacare, like
When,
the
yeah,
rest of
yeah, Obamacare, yeah, that's right, you don't have a special deal, you don't have a special deal. And then when you leave, you take your 401k, whatever you saved with you, so you can invest it for your own, there's no A plan or defined benefit plan that goes on for life. Why shouldn't we, if I'm elected to Congress, why shouldn't I have the same benefits that the average American citizen does, as opposed to some extra special deal that I cut for myself? Okay. Now, what do you want to ask? Did I answer your question?
No, I didn't.
What was the question?
The question is, do you support the 17th Amendment? Do you think that's a just rule? in
Well,
the
first of all, you have to
Constitution?
look at it this way. If we were sitting here in 1912 and having the discussion, that was what the national debate was. They made a decision at the time as part of a national debate. It's not for me to say what was right or wrong. They were viewing it in the eyes of people living 100 years ago. Do you realize the founding fathers may have looked a little differently about how we were set up if they could have envisioned the Industrial Revolution?
Well, they did though.
Thank you, but we'll talk, this is not germane, they really, again, we're not gonna argue about that tonight.
No, but you're off the point. When I'm asking you about
Okay.
the 17th Amendment.
The
What
an-
is the 17th Amendment?
That's when they changed the direct election.
Direct elections for who? Appointed senators. Appointed by who? Who are these senators appointed by?
The
They were
state
appointed by
legislature.
the state legislature.
That, were you
And
listening
why
earlier,
were
were
they-
you
and
listening
why were
earlier
they
when we went
appointed?
through this?
Why were they appointed by the state legislatures? That's what I'm getting to. Those were people that were supposed to represent the state, not represent the country. They're supposed to represent the interests of the people.
I think
of
we're
the
parsing
state.
words here, but the point is, it was a national debate that occurred that led to the 17th Amendment. Yes.
Question. I really believe that there's a lot of private sector problems. I don't believe there's a government problem. But like you said about the veterans, we need a little help.
You got a runway?
Yeah. Well, I can build one.
I fly an airplane. I fly an airplane.
Okay.
Okay, but that's a great question. Number one, I've spent my entire life, my business life traveling. Whether I was flying an airplane, whether I was deployed all over the world for the Marine Corps, or whether I was running a company that was sales and distribution. I have made a lifestyle of being on the road. Now, in the largest geographical district, east of the Mississippi, I have more challenges than, let's say, that someone's got 2 or 3 counties, okay? But I will be wherever you want, there'll be a schedule. In fact, what I would like to ask you to consider is, how do we maximize our interaction? Because at some point, is it that you need to see me face to face like this? Or is it after a couple of times, we can have a big screen in here, you're sitting here, and I may be at some remote place, and we're having the same interaction. It's a virtual meeting. Sure. And, I'm at my best about 6 a.m. Okay, so the point is a cup of coffee and a good screen, and I'm used to doing video. That was just part of my business, if you will, in the Marine Corps as far as the VTCs, the video teleconferences. Well, we got more done in a short period of time, and people felt as though it was a meeting, even though we were 10,000 miles apart, because we had issues we had to deal with. So part of my communication plan with the voters in the 1st District is to, after we've had enough face-to-face, where we can read each other's body language and we know what we got going, then we can transition. Now, not all the time, but to fill those gaps when it's just impossible to get all around the district.
Well, the reason I'm asking, Dr. Dan's going to be here next month. His staff made a phone call. They're coming out to the ranch. They're trying to see. It's like, as he's going out, I don't want to try to judge where he's at, where he's been. I know he's a busy man, but there's a lot of us that are trying to take back our nation. We need a little help. We need some direction. I've talked to many of the Pete and Jim Stamos about, we don't want your money. We're not asking for your money. We're asking for connections you have, knowledge you have, connections to corporations that might be able to help us out, a little bit of direction in that manner, without having face-to-face time or having access, even through your staff. It's kind of difficult to get these things done. We'll go to work. We're not afraid to go to work. We just need a little bit of your help. And that's what I want to know. Once you're elected, can we count on that from you?
I'll give you the shortest answer I can.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Maybe I'll wrap it up here, Hank.
I got one hand in the back here.
Oh, okay.
How are we doing time-wise?
We're past 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do, who's got the shortest question?
He does.
Okay, because yours is going to be
Oh,
shorter.
actually, mine is the shortest.
Okay, Dave, go ahead. First of all, you're first, you're up.
Okay. President Obama has demoted and fired and kicked out hundreds of top military personnel, generals, admirals, and so forth, which I don't know what his plan is. Maybe you have an idea. I have an idea, but what my idea is, it scares the living fecal matter out of me. That, it's like for a takeover, of this country. I mean, if you have the right people in the military service now. What was the film where the military took over the government? I can't remember the film.
There's probably been more than one. It all seems to play well and make a few bucks for the filmmaker.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there was a film like that. But this, is this something that's coming to pass? Or what are your feelings about all these demotions and firing of top military personnel? And if you have a viewpoint on that, that's all.
My viewpoint is pretty simple. We need to elect more members of Congress who have military experience.
Well, that's...
So then therefore, if you have the people in Congress to know what's going on, and they raise the baloney flag. We don't have enough members that can stand up and say that's wrong, or again, use the power of the purse, if you will, to control the bad behavior, or the uninformed, we'll give someone a benefit of the doubt here, the uninformed behavior of what they've got as a resource, and they squander it, okay? So, I am, that's one of the reasons I'm running, is because I pretty much know how it works, and oh, by the way, anybody who gets above the 2-star level, so the 3- and 4-star level in any military service, has to go through this vetting and confirmation process. It is quite extensive, and there are some folks who don't make it just because they maybe, as you take a closer look, they were good right where they were, okay? But there are, those who do have been vetted very, very, very closely, and there are times that someone in a high-level position will make a bad judgment error. And in the military, by and large, it's not swept under the rug. It's brought up, and they're held accountable for it, and they're gone. But that's got nothing to do with some of the firearms. Okay, but there have been instances, again, I have to be, I have information over the course of time and knowledge of things just because I was there that it's not part of the public domain because of privacy. Okay. Last question.
Okay, if you get elected to Congress and you go through...
Be more positive. How about when?
Well, it's still more of an if.
Well, okay.
Okay, at the end...
We're halfway there,
if you give, well, at the end, if you make it through all the way through all your terms, are you going to accept that money that comes to you every year?
Am I going to accept that money? Well, what choice do I have?
I mean, okay, well, then what are you going to do with it?
Well, I could donate it all. I already have a pretty good philanthropy plan going personally, which I do. My wife and I are, so I guess the more money I have, the more I can spread around. Okay? I believe in, not to get into personal philanthropy here, but my wife and I for decades have been very big supporters of a few things, but the main one is education.
Education. There's one man right up there, sitting up there.
Okay.
There's a man sitting up there at that table.
So, and
Okay.
do you know what an altruistic philanthropist is? As opposed to there's two types. People give for one of two reasons. They get a warm and fuzzy feeling from giving the money. They don't really, they just want to give it. They don't really care about the outcome or the accountability or whatever it is. They just want to get the warm and fuzzy feeling. The altruistic giver or philanthropist wants to help people or help institutions who at a certain time need a helping hand to get started or get back on their feet. But don't expect the check coming all the time, because we're going to help you get going, and we expect you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get going. Because again, we talked about earlier, we all need a helping hand at some time in our life. And that's part of the beauty and the greatness of our society, is we reach out to those who need it and help them when they need it.
Okay.
Quick response. I donate because I grew up very poor, and I'm a recipient of help when I was a kid. Until today, I'm repaying.
There you go. You're paying it forward.
And then there's
By the way, just so you know, we're talking about money. My family had all the money we needed, but we just didn't need very much. Okay, parents were Depression era kids. World War II. You know the scenario. My dad was born and raised in the western part of the UP. So anyway, but tough times make tough people.
Are they ever going to let us trap a wolf up in the UP?
That's a good question. I don't know. I know there's one less this week because he tangled with my bumper on my...
I had one of them left wing.
Yeah, and I wasn't going to...
Just called me a barbarian because I'm a trapper and this and that, but she made the remark, why can't they just shoot him in the guts and let him run off in the woods?
Well, you can't deal with uninformed is just that, uninformed.
Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because this has been something that's in our, in the news and our Congress is dealing with. What do you think we should do of what they call the war with ISIS?
That's a loaded question.
Well, I tell you what, that is, again, I will apologize, I'm gonna kind of defer on that, just to make one comment, because again, I do have access to some of the things that are going on, okay? Anybody who thinks they can throw a few $1 billion and boots on the ground and it's gonna solve the problem has not read history. So, I'll close it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.